The National Electrical Code does not contain a specific prohibition against using an existing isolated ground as an equipment ground. To understand this, it's important to define both isolated grounds and equipment grounds and clarify their purposes. An equipment ground, also known as a safety ground, is a conductive path designed to provide a low impedance return for fault current from electrical equipment back to the source. This path ensures that overcurrent protective devices such as circuit breakers or fuses will operate quickly to clear a fault, thereby minimizing the risk of electrical shock or fire. The equipment grounding system typically consists of the following elements. Firstly, the grounding electrode conductor, which connects the service equipment to a grounding electrode such as a ground rod, ground plate, or metal underground water pipe. Secondly, the equipment grounding conductors, which are the wires or metallic raceways that connect the non-current carrying metal parts of electrical equipment back to the service equipment. Thirdly, bonding jumpers, which are used to ensure electrical continuity between metal parts of the electrical system, such as metal conduit, enclosures, and equipment frames. An isolated ground, on the other hand, is a special type of equipment grounding conductor that is intentionally isolated from the normal equipment grounding system. The purpose of an isolated ground is to reduce electrical noise and interference that can affect sensitive electronic equipment. Isolated grounds are often used in applications such as computer systems, audio equipment, and laboratory instruments, where even small amounts of electrical noise can cause problems. The key characteristic of an isolated ground is that it is insulated from contact with metal raceways, enclosures, and other conductive surfaces. The isolated ground conductor is typically run directly back to the service equipment grounding bus without being connected to the building's normal equipment grounding system along the way. This helps to prevent noise currents from circulating in the equipment grounding system and interfering with the operation of sensitive equipment. The NEC addresses isolated grounds in section 250.96b, which permits the use of isolated grounding conductors for sensitive electronic equipment. However, the NEC also requires that isolated grounding conductors comply with all other applicable requirements for equipment grounding conductors, including sizing and installation requirements. Now, addressing the initial question, while the NEC doesn't explicitly prohibit using an existing isolated ground for an equipment ground, there are several factors to consider before doing so. Firstly, the existing isolated ground conductor must be properly sized to carry the available fault current. The size of the equipment grounding conductor is determined by NEC Table 250.122, which is based on the size of the overcurrent protective device protecting the circuit. If the existing isolated ground conductor is not large enough to handle the available fault current, it could overheat and potentially cause a fire. Secondly, the existing isolated ground conductor must be properly connected to the equipment grounding bus at the service equipment. This connection must be made in accordance with NEC section 250.8, which requires that grounding connections be made using listed connectors or by exothermic welding. A poor connection could result in a high impedance ground path, which would reduce the effectiveness of the equipment grounding system. Thirdly, the existing isolated ground conductor must be installed in accordance with all other applicable requirements for equipment grounding conductors. This includes requirements for protection from physical damage, support, and identification. Improperly installed grounding conductors could be damaged or disconnected, which would compromise the safety of the electrical system. Fourthly, it is important to consider the potential impact on the performance of sensitive electronic equipment. If the existing isolated ground conductor is used for both equipment grounding and isolated grounding, it could introduce noise and interference into the isolated ground system, which could degrade the performance of sensitive equipment. In some cases, it may be necessary to install a separate equipment grounding conductor to avoid this problem. Fifthly, it's crucial to ensure that the combined grounding system meets all applicable NEC requirements. This includes verifying that the impedance of the ground path is low enough to allow overcurrent protective devices to operate quickly in the event of a fault. The NEC provides guidance on how to measure ground impedance in section 250.45. Finally, it is always a good idea to consult with a qualified electrical engineer or inspector before making any changes to an existing grounding system. They can help you assess the potential risks and benefits of using an existing isolated ground for equipment grounding and ensure that the installation complies with all applicable codes and standards. To summarize, while the NEC does not explicitly prohibit using an existing isolated ground for an equipment ground, it is important to carefully consider the factors outlined above before doing so. The existing isolated ground conductor must be properly sized, connected, and installed, and it must not compromise the performance of sensitive electronic equipment. Additionally, the combined grounding system must meet all applicable NEC requirements. If there is any doubt, it is always best to consult with a qualified electrical professional. Remember that the primary purpose of the equipment grounding system is to provide a safe path for fault current and to protect people and property from electrical hazards. Any modifications to the grounding system must be made with this goal in mind. It's also important to note that local codes and regulations may have additional requirements for grounding systems. Be sure to check with your local electrical inspector to ensure that your installation complies with all applicable codes and standards. In addition to the NEC requirements, there are also industry best practices for grounding and bonding. These practices are often based on recommendations from organizations such as the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, the IEE, and the International Association of Electrical Inspectors, the IE. Following these best practices can help to ensure that your grounding system is effective and reliable. Some examples of industry best practices for grounding and bonding include the following. Firstly, using copper conductors for grounding and bonding whenever possible. Copper is an excellent conductor of electricity and is resistant to corrosion. Secondly, keeping grounding conductors as short and straight as possible. This will help to minimize impedance and ensure that fault current can flow quickly and easily. Thirdly, avoiding the use of ground loops. Ground loops can occur when there are multiple ground paths between two pieces of equipment. This can create circulating currents that can cause noise and interference. Fourthly, bonding all metal parts of the electrical system together. This will help to ensure that all metal parts are at the same potential, which will reduce the risk of electrical shock. Fifthly, performing regular inspections and tests of the grounding system. This will help to identify any problems early on and prevent them from becoming more serious. When working with electrical systems, it is always important to follow safe work practices. This includes wearing appropriate personal protective equipment, using insulated tools, and energizing circuits before working on them. If you are not qualified to work on electrical systems, it is best to hire a licensed electrician. Electricity can be dangerous, and it is important to take all necessary precautions to protect yourself and others from harm. To further elaborate on the importance of proper grounding and bonding, consider the following scenario. Imagine a piece of electrical equipment with a metal enclosure. If the enclosure is not properly grounded and a fault occurs inside the equipment, the enclosure could become energized. If someone were to touch the energized enclosure, they could receive a severe electrical shock. However, if the enclosure is properly grounded, the fault current will flow through the equipment grounding conductor back to the source, causing the overcurrent protective device to trip and de-energize the circuit. This will prevent the enclosure from becoming energized and protect people from electrical shock. In addition to protecting people from electrical shock, proper grounding and bonding also helps to protect equipment from damage. When a fault occurs, the fault current can generate heat and electromagnetic forces that can damage equipment. However, if the equipment is properly grounded, the fault current will be quickly cleared, minimizing the potential for damage. Proper grounding and bonding is also important for the proper operation of sensitive electronic equipment. As mentioned earlier, electrical noise and interference can cause problems with sensitive equipment. However, a properly designed grounding system can help to reduce noise and interference, ensuring that sensitive equipment operates reliably. In conclusion, while the NEC doesn't have a direct prohibition against repurposing an isolated ground as an equipment ground, it's a complex decision. It requires a thorough understanding of grounding principles, NEC requirements, and potential impacts on sensitive equipment. Safety and code compliance must always be the top priorities.